As we read in the scriptures earlier, through the prophet Amos, he said unto us that Yahweh God does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets. God, it is not a concept that is ancient or old. In other words, it is something that God continues to do to this very day. He does nothing without revealing unto us, his people, his prophets, what he is about to do in our lives and in our lifetime. God reveals his thoughts, his ways, his intentions to his people. For people to say, well, I don't know what God is doing. I don't believe that that is true. Because then that would make the scriptures untrue. For the scripture lets us know that God does nothing without first revealing his plan, what he is about to do, what he is attempting to do, what is on his mind, his thoughts, to his servants, the prophets. And I believe as he has done that in ancient times, I believe he is doing it today, even among our own lives. God has revealed even unto us his purpose, his plan, our destiny as individuals and even as a congregation. And in keeping with that thought, I would like to come before you with this word, which is entitled, "The Right Time is Here." The right time is here. Time. What is time? Time can be defined as a precise moment. It is a second. It is a minute, an hour, a day. It is a week. It is a month. It is a year. Time can be measured with either a clock or even by a calendar. Time is a physical matter that God himself has created, in which he has placed man in. Time is the point at which something has happened, or time is a point at which something is happening, and time is a point in which something will happen. Time is the appointed moment for something to happen, that is, to begin or to end. Just like our lives, in time we were born. As Solomon said, there is a time to be born and there is a time to die. There is a time to rejoice and there is a time to not rejoice. There is a time to build and there is a time to tear down. Time, there is a beginning of time and there is an ending of time. When God created the world, time began when he says, "Let there be light," and he divided the light from the day. And he said that marked the first day, where there was evening and there was morning. Time began. And when he shall recreate the earth again, the new heavens and the new earth, time shall then be no more. Because there will no longer be a need for time. Because we will be entering to eternity. But as long as we are upon this earth, we are subject to time. But in regards to the people of God, the right time is defined then as the exact moment that Yahweh said something will happen. In other words, there is no coincidence with God. God does not mark time when something happens per se. Or that we don't mark time by the clock on the wall, or we don't mark time by what the calendar says. In God's economy for his people, time is marked by what he says will occur at that precise moment. In other words, it is the right time for whatever he said to occur, regardless of what the clock says, regardless of what the calendar says. If God says that now is the time, then that means it is the right time for whatever he said to occur, not before and not after. Time. The right time, not just time, but the right time is defined again as the exact moment, the precise second, the precise millisecond that Yahweh says something will happen, that thing will occur. That is the time that marks our lives. That is the time that we set our clocks to and our calendars by. When God says that something will happen at that precise moment. That is how we judge time. For Isaiah the prophet says in the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 22, he says, I, Yahweh, when the right time comes, he says, will quickly bring it about. Not when we think something should occur, but God says when the right time comes. Then I shall bring about what I have said, what I have promised, what I have determined, and what I have planned. Remember, he does nothing without first revealing it to his prophets, that something is going to happen in the lives of his people. And then when the right time comes, whether it be eons of years or whether it be tomorrow, he says, I will quickly bring it about. But to bring it down to even a more personal level, Yahweh is saying to this congregation, I have chosen and I have appointed a precise moment in time, the right time in which I will cause all that I have promised to happen to us. Not before and not after. God is saying that what I'm about to do will cause for all to marvel. And all will know that I am with you. Many people thought that God was done doing what he wanted to do with us. God has a plan. Remember, God has a plan. He says, haven't I already brought to pass that which appeared to you to be impossible? It was absolutely impossible, but yet he brought it to pass. And now he is saying that I have chosen and that I have appointed a precise moment in time that is coming. He calls it the right time in which I will cause for all that I have promised, all that I have told you about, all that I have planned to come about, to happen. He is saying to us, watch me and marvel at what I will do We marveled at what he has done. But he ain't done yet. Yahweh is saying to those who will receive this word, trust me. Have faith in me. He says, I will surely do what I have promised. He says that when the right time comes, when the exact moment arrives that I have determined, then all that I have promised and all that I have prophesied concerning Beit HaKavod will quickly and without hesitation, without delay, it will be manifested before our very eyes. Oh, he is saying, hear me now. Look around, he says. Look at where you are. Look at what you're sitting in. He says, who here purchased this place? Who here gave all the money for this building to be acquired? He says, was it not I? Was it not I? The Ruach, or the Spirit of Yahweh, is saying to you and to I, is there anything too hard for God? Is there anything that is impossible for Yahweh our God? He says, cannot he do anything that he pleases? Can he not do anything that he wants? Don't you understand? It pleases the Father, and this is not being arrogant, but I believe this is what God is saying. It pleases the Father to bless us. And if he chooses to bless us, who can stop him then from blessing? He is the sovereign one. He alone has the power to fulfill all of his promises. He will bring about those things that he has spoken. He is saying it shall be done, and it will be done. Many people say, well, why will God bless you in such a miraculous way and give you such a wonderful building and then not give you the rest? God has a plan. God has a purpose. And God has a way. But he is saying unto us, brothers and sisters, all that he has promised, he will bring about. All that he has spoken, it says, it shall be done, and it will be done. There, brothers and sisters, whether you understand it or not, whether you can sense it or not, whether you can see it or not, there is something astir in the atmosphere. I believe the Ruach, or the Spirit, is revealing that something wonderful is about to happen. God is trying to get you ready. He is trying to get you focused. He says something big is about to break forth. Can't explain it, but it feels like the right time for something wonderful is about to occur. Out of all the time that we've been here, out of all the time that we have been in existence, why now has he chosen for us to acquire this building? Why now? Why not yesterday? Why not last year? Why not the year before that? Why now in 2013 did he move the waters, part the sky? The right time feels feels like the right time for something to happen. It feels like it. The atmosphere is above, is above. Feels like the right time has come. That the right time is upon you and I. That the right time is here and in the now. Brothers and sisters, there is a Hebrew word that best describes this sense, this feeling. It is a Hebrew word, shoni, which means change. For Yahweh to indicate to us that the right time has come is another way of him saying that things are changing. No longer is it acceptable. No longer is it good enough for things to remain the same, to stay the same. God says, change. Change is happening. By him giving us this building in the miraculous way that he did, he is intimating that change is at work in our lives. Don't you understand what God did for us? We had no money. We had no money, zero. But yet, we were able to acquire this building. No money. Participated in an auction. Gave them $20,000. That's all we had. Put it in a pile. Says, here, take it. Then we had $148,300 left over to pay if we were going to acquire this building. And we had 30 days to come up with $148,300. And we had no more money. And the clock was ticking. Every day that passed, no money. Looked in the mailbox, no checks. Listen for the knock on the door, nobody came. Listen for somebody to give us a call on the telephone, ring-a-ding-ding, nobody gave us a call. Tick, tick, tick. The clock was ticking. Here we are, down to the very last day, and no money. Auctioneer calling me says, is everything all right? I said, everything is fine. Because we believed, I believed in what God said. Said, this building shall be ours. I will give it unto you. Trust me, he says. Deadline came and gone. Auctioneer called me. Says, well, I don't have any money today. I said, but we have a meeting scheduled. And maybe we can acquire something through this particular meeting that we were going to. I said that not thinking that we was going to get money from that organization that we was going to, but maybe they could refer us to somebody. We went to the meeting, as I said before, nothing transpired. I came home, there was nothing. My wife told me, and I sat in the chair at the table, and I said, well, I don't know what to do, babe. We exhausted all avenues. We cannot come up with the money. She says, don't call the auctioneer today. Don't call him just yet. That's what she told me. Because I was supposed to call him and let him know how our meeting went, because we were already a day past the due date. So we just sat there. I said, all right, I won't call. And we sat there. And then I would say about an hour later, we get a phone call. Out of the blue, somebody calls us and said, God told me to give you $148,300, just enough to buy this building. Oh, what a marvelous and what an awesome God we have. God moved upon the heart of an individual to give us what we needed at the right time. Not before, not later, but at the precise moment that he chosen. Give them a call. Gave us a call. Who in the world would give a people that kind of money, cash money, cash, and say, God told me to give it to you so that you can acquire that building? A fulfillment of his promise to us. Change, hear me, brothers and sisters, change is happening. Why now has he done this? Brothers and sisters, because of what God has done, we must know that the favor of God is upon us, that there is a special purpose for this congregation, that Yahweh has a plan for our lives that we must fulfill. We have a destiny to accomplish. Don't you understand? It's not being braggadocious. It's just revealing the truth. God has a purpose for our existence, for our lives. The birthing of this congregation, brothers and sisters, is not by accident. Nor did it come about by any means or any efforts of any one individual. We are here because Yahweh has ordained it so. We are here because Yahweh has determined that he will give birth to something new from the rubbles of that which he himself tore apart. You have a purpose. He did it this way so that no man will be able to take the glory for what he is about to do with us. Yahweh is going to take this small congregation who has very little strength, hardly no power, and do what no one thinks is possible. Hear me now. He has already given us an indication about what he's going to do. He has already shown his hand by causing this congregation with no money to acquire this building. Not because we came up with the money, but because he gave us the money. Oh, well, baby, we got the deed right in hand saying that we are the owners. And it's all because of what he did. He says that we will be the head and not the tail, that we will do great things for the glory of God. Is not this congregation appropriately named Beit HaKavod, which means the house of glory? All the glory, all the praise, and all the honor belongs to him. He is saying that now is the time. Don't you understand? Change has begun. Now, brothers and sisters, is the right time. Oh, things are not going to stay the same. Things cannot stay the same. When the children of Israel left Egypt, that marked change. And from that moment on, nothing about them and their lives remained the same. The earth was on notice that Israel is coming. Israel, who is led by the mighty God, is coming to conquer and to possess what God has given unto them. Oh, we have been set free. The world is on notice. Change is coming. Do you understand what I'm saying? God did it his way, this miraculous way, this wonderful way to show us and to show everyone else that he is with us, that he is leading us and guiding us, and that no man, no efforts of men has done this thing. Started us off miraculously. Give us this building miraculously, and will cause us to be able to acquire the funding to restore it miraculously. And then will cause us to go out and do miraculous things among the people. Now there are those among us who might say this. What about those who are no longer here among us now? Some may say, well, why did not they stay? If this prophetic word was issued concerning this congregation, and if you were prophesied to do great things, why have they gone? Why have you whittled down to just a few? As Yahweh said to Moses, I'll answer it like this. As Yahweh said to Moses about the people of Israel, so too is he saying about those who have departed. For in the book of Devarim, or the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 29, verses 2 through 4, he says, Then Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, You saw everything Yahweh did before your eyes in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh, to all his servants, and to all his lands, the great testings which you saw with your own eyes, and the signs and those great wonders. Nevertheless, to this day, Yahweh has not given you a heart to understand, eyes to see, or ears to hear. Concerning those who were among us and are no more, Yahweh is saying, I did not give them a heart to understand, nor eyes to see, or ears to hear. Though they saw what you saw and heard what you heard the prophetic call, heard the prophetic vision, they nevertheless were blinded so that they could not see, and deaf so that they could not hear. Why? Because I, Yahweh, have deemed it to be so. In other words, he says, remember the scripture where it says, many are called, but few are chosen. Like in the time of Gideon, where he amassed a great army to go up against their foes. God told them, you got too many. Send some home. Gideon sent some home and says, those who want to go home, go home. And he came back to Yahweh. God says, you still have too much. He says, those who are fearful, you can go home. And they all went home. Some went home. Gideon came back to God. God says, you still got too many. He says, take them down to the river, and those who take water and lap it like a dog, he says, those are the ones that I have chosen. Gideon ended up with 300 men to fight an army that was 2-3 times his size. God says, now that's the right amount. Why? God wanted to show them that it is me, not you in your own power and strength, who would do this thing. Many, he says, are called, but few are chosen. God is saying to us, have not I chosen you? You remain. You have been chosen. Like those who stood with Gideon to fight his foe. We must all understand this one important point. Yahweh knows the thoughts and the intentions of every person's heart. He knows the true purpose behind every person's actions, their motives, and he knows what's behind their words. Because of our inability to see a person for who they really are, we can be deceived into believing false impressions. People can pull the wool over our eyes and appear to be one way, but in truth, they are truly another way. Because of our limited power of perception, we are so easily deceived into believing that we're all of one mind and that unity exists, when in fact, it doesn't. But Yahweh says, I know and I see all things. He says, I will reveal what is hidden and will uncover what is secret. Then the question arises, how then does God test a person's inner motivations? How does he then differentiate between the willing and the unwilling? Those who believe and those who don't? Moses reveals the answer when he declares to Israel in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 2, he says, you are to remember everything of the way in which Yahweh led you these 40 years in the desert, humbling and testing you in order to know what was in your heart, whether you would obey his commandments or not. We have been led through the wilderness for 4 years, humbling and testing us in order to know what was in our hearts. Do you follow me now? Yahweh is saying to Beit HaKavod, I humbled you and I tested you to see if you would obey me or not, to see if you would trust me or not, whether that you will obey my voice, whether you will continue to believe what I have promised you, even when things got hard, and whether you will continue to believe in the prophecies and in the vision that was revealed about us, especially when it looked like those things were impossible to occur. Testing us, proving us. To be honest, some of us did not quite understand that God was testing this congregation. Many people didn't know that. They didn't know that he was proving us to see if we would stand. To see if we would stand on his word. Yahweh was testing us to know if we would continue to believe in his promises or not. Trying to see if we would hold on to his unchanging hand. I ask you, look around and you be the judge. Determine for yourselves whether some of us pass the test or not. Look around. See who believed him. I don't have to say a word. God says, I don't even have to point anyone out. Look around and see. Those who stayed believed. the vision and the promises of God for this congregation. And those who did not stay did not believe. Matter of fact, some told us to our face that they didn't believe. Said, I don't believe in the vision. Some said, I don't believe you would ever get this place. That's what they said. They didn't understand what God was doing. To them, they saw the huge mountain. They saw us, and they saw the amount, and they saw the work on the building, and said, it can't be done. Not with y'all. Y'all are on the Titanic, and I ain't going down with you. They said, I got my own raft in my room. Excuse me, I'm tipping out. A friend of mine who was an inspector, he came to inspect the building because somebody called the city to try to get us thrown out of here. A friend of mine, but nice guy, I like him a lot. He goes to a different church, but he came to me, he pulled me aside after looking at the place and doing this little inspections and writing. He said to me, he says, Mark, he says, I'm just going to give you some words of advice. He says, don't go down with the Titanic. That's just what he told me. He says, I know another place, he said, that you can get, that you can acquire. Here, he wrote me the name of the realtor down. Said, call him. The place is empty. Right off the expressway down south, he says. It's ready, all done. You can just talk to the realtor and move right on in. The people who owns it, they're eager to sell. I was being nice and cordial. Said, okay, well, good. Just give me the number and we'll see. Never called. Then when he got his report done, we had met some of the requirements. We was able to get some extinguishers, put some emergency lights in, stuff like that. Then I went down to his office because he was going to give me the report. And he didn't stop. He told me to come to his desk, showed me on the computer screen this building. I guess they're trying to persuade me even more. Look how nice it looks. Manicure lawns, nice driveway, parking lot. I said, well, that's nice. Yes, that's nice. But that is not what God said. That was not his plan, his purpose for us. So I didn't tell him the fact I ain't had no money even to buy that place. Didn't say that. But God was testing us to show what was in our hearts, our intentions. God was testing us to see if we would believe in him and trust in him. As I said before, look around and you'll find the answer as to who passed the test or not. Yahweh, he tested us, brothers and sisters, by allowing us to become hungry. In other words, he allowed for difficult and hard times to come our way. I'm talking about the test that God, how he tested us. He allowed for opposition to squeeze us beyond our point of being comfortable. Hear me now. As we've been in here, he's allowed for the water to get cut off, where we had to bring up jugs of water. You know what I'm talking about. Y'all was bringing them. Jugs of water, buckets of water, just so that we can flush the toilets and wash our hands. He was testing us. He allowed for even the electricity to be cut off, where we had to use candles and flashlights just to get around. You know what I'm saying? Going into the bathroom, you couldn't see where you was going. Testing us. He even allowed the gas to be cut off, where we had no heat all last year during the winter months. You know what I'm saying? We out there in here in coats and in jackets and in gloves, testing us to see if we would still believe. God did this to test our resolve, to test our willingness to endure and to remain faithful to him in spite of our difficulties. Some people says, oh, y'all got no heat? I know this is the Titanic for tonight. I know for sure. How can you say God has called you, God is blessing you, and you can't even keep the utilities on? How in the world are you going to buy this place? But God was testing us. Like he took the children of Israel through the wilderness. He said, I allowed you to go hungry. I allowed for you to become thirsty because I wanted to see what was in here. It's easy, brothers and sisters, to stand and to have faith when things are going good. But to stand and yet believe when difficulties come is another thing entirely. Oh, yeah, it is. It was just saying that when the tough get going, or something, I can't even think of the saying now. But when hard times come, those who aren't tough, those who aren't resilient, those whose minds are not made up and hearts are fixed, they will leave. And this is what Yahweh was doing to us. He was testing us, taking us through the wilderness. He allowed for the adversary to attack us with fear, causing the fearful to run and the weak to faint. God allowed for unsubstantiated rumors to spread among us, knowing the pain and the damage that these things would inflict. He allowed for harmful teachings to come in among us, teaching that caused confusion and division. He allowed it to see if you will stand. All of this was done in order to reveal the hearts and the minds of those that say they are with us. So leery when people come. So leery when people come. I'm with you. God sent me. I say, we'll see. Get your coat and get your gloves and see how long you sit there freezing. Your toes all curled up in your shoes and in your boot because your feet are so cold. Rabbi just preaching along when you freezing. Come on, preacher, get done. I'm cold. You know what I'm saying. It's true. Oh, not that I'm long, but your toes are curled up. The scriptures says that after Yahweh allowed for the people of Israel to go hungry, it says after he tested them, it says that he fed them with food that came down from heaven. And in much the same way, because we were made to suffer and to endure hardships, Yahweh will also provide us now with what we need, because the time has come. As God provided Israel with food to counteract their physical hunger, so too will he provide us with those things that will counteract the suffering that we resulted from our testing as well. Like the manna that rained down from heaven, Yahweh is going to open, or is now opening, the windows of heaven and will rain down a blessing upon us. Day after day, week after week, like the children of Israel collect a manna from the ground, we will also be fed from God's storehouses until our cup, baby, runs over. Change is happening. Yeshua says that these words are meant for us. Now that we suffered, now that we've been tested, now that we've been proved, these words are meant to bring hope and encouragement for the weary soul. Don't you understand? After testing, one becomes weary. One becomes weakened. Remember when Yeshua was tested 40 days in the wilderness. The scripture says afterwards he got hungry. He was weary. God said that afterwards he sent angels who ministered unto him and helped him. After our testing, we've grown weary. Oh yeah, I'm weary. I'm tired. We've been carrying heavy weights, heavy loads. But God says, be encouraged. The right time has come. Now there were some among us, like I said, who heard the promises and the vision concerning this place, but yet didn't understand or care to understand what was being said. They couldn't comprehend the special nature or the calling of this congregation, and because of their lack of caring about the spiritual excellency of our destiny, the enemy came and snatched the glorious word from their hearts, and they quickly faded away from among us. Here today, gone tomorrow. There were also some among us who heard the promises and the vision concerning this congregation's calling and destiny. They initially received the message with joy and jubilation. They danced with us and feasted at our tables as we celebrated the mighty acts of God. But when the time of testing came, when Yahweh allowed for persecution and trouble and suffering to come at our doors, some failed this test or testing, and as quickly as they came, they quickly fell away. There were also some among us who heard the promise of this vision for this place. But because their appetite for the world and those things associated in it was wet, the prophetic word wasn't able to take hold upon them. The allure of immorality and fornication, excessive drinking, drugs, and even the acquisition of ill-gotten gain, the prophetic word quickly died in their hearts of these individuals. And regrettably, they fell back into the world. Oh, yes. You may not know of some, but they have. But however, those of you who remain in spite of being tested are the one Yahweh considers to be loyal. You are the ones who have faithfully endured in spite of the troubles, in spite of the persecutions that have come upon this congregation. Because you were associated with us, Because folk viewed us as being bad or viewed us as being the bad apple, you are also viewed that way as well. You go there? Haven't you heard? Don't you know? But God says you are the ones who have remained steadfast in your belief in what he has said and has shown regarding this congregation and this building in spite of the many naysayers and doubters. You are the ones who held on tight and wouldn't let go of the vision that Yahweh gave concerning this building. I remember Ernestine saying one time, if you don't mind me using your example, I'm almost done. Hang on. Hang on. Oh, long-winded preacher. But anyway. I remember Ernestine saying one time, just not too long ago, when we couldn't come up, where we didn't have the $148,000 for the building and the deadline was drawing close. I didn't say anything to her, but I heard what she said. She said, I don't care even if the building is sold. She says, I believe the vision that God gave. She says, I believe. She says, somehow it's going to be turned into our hands. I remember hearing her say that. In spite of all the obstacles and the mountain, she said, I yet believe. Because of your trust and faithfulness to Yahweh and his word, he says, you will be blessed beyond measure, and you will produce much fruit for the sake of the kingdom. You have been chosen. Many are called. Many have been called. Many have graced these doors and walked right back out the same door. They were called. They came. But they weren't chosen. Some of us will produce a 30-fold harvest. Some 60, and others will produce 100 times more than what was planted because we believe Yahweh and we believe what he said. And he will use us to do great things for his glory. The blessings that Yahweh will heap upon us will be greater than any one of us can imagine. Hear me now. We will be blessed with a good measure, the scripture says, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. This, brothers and sisters, is how Yahweh our God will bless us. But only continue steadfast in his love. Be unwavering in your faith, immovable in your trust, and always abounding in his truth. If we do this, then watch and see. Watch God move. Yahweh is about to do something on a grand scale. Hear me now. You think I'm lying? That's fine. You think I'm not saying what is right? I believe God is going to do something on a grand scale. Something so awesome that we will all have to say that this is Yahweh's doing. And it is not only marvelous in our eyes, but it will be also marvelous in the eyes of everyone else who will look and see. Hear me now. People are already saying, how did they buy that building? Already being said. How did them poor little bit of folk who ain't got no money, how did they buy this building? Already being said. Some are even saying it's not true, they didn't buy it. Why? Because the reality of us doing it, they cannot conceive or perceive. To them, it's impossible. How? They say, God is not with them. How? But we'll just hold up the deed, say, baby, this is how. And it has Yahweh's name written all on the top. He owns it. He gave it to us. That's how. Because he is with us. I conclude with the words of Yeshua, where he says in the book of Matthew chapter 13, verse 14 through 16, don't y'all start clapping now, but as I said it in conclusion. He says, in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which says, you will keep on hearing but never understand, and keep on seeing but never perceive, because the heart of this people has become dull. With the ears they barely hear, and their eyes they have closed, so as not to see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their heart, and do repentance or teshuvah, so that I may heal them. But he says, but you. He says, how blessed are your eyes, because they see. And how blessed are your ears, because they hear. God is saying, you are blessed. Hear me now. Because you heard, you see, and you believed. Change is in the air. Something wonderful and extraordinary, hear me now, is about to happen. Something marvelous is about to break forth. The right time has come for something to occur. The right time has come for something to happen. Can you feel it? Can you sense it? It feels, brothers and sisters, like the right time has finally come. Scripture says, weeping may endure for a night, but baby, in the morning, joy comes. In the morning, joy comes. Yahweh is saying to us, can't you see the sun rising over the horizon? Morning is coming. Change is in the air. Change is upon us. Change is happening. Change has begun. The right time has come.